Bless up for tuning in to Project Chaney. Magic happens when you question everything. Conspirituality becomes reality, weirdness is welcomed, and it's okay to change your mind. Big up yourself.
Hey, you guys. Welcome to another episode of Project Chaney. I first off want to shout out to some of my favorite people. The Truthzilla podcast celebrated their 1-year anniversary this week, and I was lucky enough to swing by and tell them I love them. And yeah, they have some pretty great guests. If you haven't already listened to Scott's episode or Megan's episode of my show, that's 2 of them. I'll be hanging out with Ed, the third or first or second member of Truthzilla, the other member of Truthzilla, at the end of the month. So you guys will meet him too, but you could just go over and find them anywhere you see the green monster. I highly recommend it. Also, I hung out with Kara Mosher this week. And Kara Mosher has a podcast called Let's Be Friends. She is just wonderful. She has a very high vibe. She seems like she's connecting to energies and images and entities that are very not third dimensional. And I like talking to people like that. I like talking to people that are learning to trust their own superpowers and are just standing in their authenticity, no matter what that means. And standing in your own authenticity is really how I think we kind of heal the collective and represent God through the aperture of us, and then expand him and continue to expand it as the source energy. I know this is a really weird thought to have, but I'm going to see if I can get it out. There's like the puddle theory of flat earth, or the infinite plane theory, or whatever you want to think of flat earth. And I kind of think sometimes in the simulation of it all that if they can convince us of these black mirrors and these borders and these things, then we stop rendering the infinite plane. We stop. If they can convince us space, take the globe idea. If they can convince us in dark matter, and that dark matter takes up the infinity and it's the majority of everything out there, to me, it's all spiritual warfare. So they're trying to convince us that of this dark matter. They're trying to convince us that Black Lives Matter, when it has nothing to do with what we think is a racial war in America. To me, it's a spiritual war, and they're trying to get us to take part in it all the time. And I believe in the idea of God, of like, if I could take you and you were brilliant and you were living in your love, and I took you to the edge of the simulation or the edge of the infinite plane or the edge of dark energy, you could manifest more heaven, more earth, more beauty before you. And somewhere, I think them closing us in with all these ideas that were just dust on dust floating through infinity, or that even if you believe in like the firmament idea, like, here you are, God made this for you, there's a lid on it, so enjoy your Tupperware bowl. No matter the religion, they just try to finite God to me. And I just don't have this idea that God's finite. And I don't have this idea that source energy is something that we could put a lid on. And so spiritually, I think they've convinced us that we are this one thing through whatever religion you look at, and it's binary. It has like, an beginning and an end. And I don't think that. I don't think there's a beginning or an end. I don't believe time is linear. I do believe you can heal not just your past, but maybe your bloodline or maybe your past life. And it's a big idea. But if you believe we're energy, if you believe in energy, and if you believe energy is everywhere, then you have to start thinking in those kind of big ideas. Yeah, that was a lot, but you should definitely go to the Let's Be Friends podcast and hang out with Kara Mosher. And she has a lot of fun guests, and she's a real good time. And I think you guys will enjoy her too. And earlier in the week, I was also on the Esoteric Gladiator podcast, and that was really fun as well. We got to hang out and talk about stuff I haven't really delved into in a few months. And it was fun to talk about esoteric Hollywood and the occult and all the crazy stuff with all the symbolism in there. And you guys really might enjoy that as well. So I think you should find all of these people, Drusilla, Kara Mosher, Esoteric Gladiator. You can find them all on Instagram. You can find them all everywhere. And you'll be very glad that you did. And so, which brings me to this episode of my show. And you guys might hear it a little bit. So I am kind of a fangirl of Graham from Grimerica. If you guys have never listened to the Grimerica podcast, they really cover every subject. I mean, you can find everything from, just farming and living green and organics to the furthest end of esoteric space or lizard people or, everything in between. Both of the dudes on this podcast, which I love, is they cement their shoes in things, like they cement their idea in things based around facts. And they've lived real lives that allow them, like they've actually healed from their traumas and they're working through things and they're kind of, I say this phrase a lot, but putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to, not just putting out information, but doing meetups and doing sustainability things and doing spiritual work and putting out all these really amazing platforms that you can find other intelligent, open-minded people. And I mean, everywhere you can find Grimerica, and the amount of connections and great listens and other podcasts that I found through these dudes is they might be like, first I had Alex Jones and then I had Grimerica, and they kind of, what everybody thinks of Alex Jones now, love him or hate him or whatever truth you feel like came from him. But there was definitely a little bit of heart in this whole conspiracy game, knowledge game, truth game that Grimerica had that I was desperately in need of when I was getting woke. And so, I kind of had this like decade of brutal, harsh truth. And then I got to meet the Grimerica boys. So one of them is Graham, and he comes on today. And I am such a fangirl, and I've listened to him so long. I almost get excited. And I've done this a few times when I've done podcasts with him. Like, I just have all this information I want to scream at in his face, not even scream at, just be like, oh my gosh. It's like I'm just riding an adrenaline because of really just how much I love his brain and love his heart and love his journey. And it makes me interrupt. And we also had a weird kind of connection. He's in Canada, I'm in Florida, and sometimes the internet runs perfect, but sometimes there's just like that right amount of delay that we had sometimes with each other. So I felt like, oh, no, I don't want you to, but I just really am a huge fangirl. So I think you the more you guys get to know me, you'll kind of tell when I have that kind of nerves for people. And not that I'm not an enormous fan of every single person that's been on my show, but just the amount of years I've been listening to Grimerica and the amount I've heard Graham's voice specifically in my head, it's kind of surreal and all simulation seeming when I'm staring across from him, having a conversation, just him and I. And that little tiny thing lets me know manifestation's real. It lets me know how powerful I am. It lets me feel really grateful for whatever avatar Graham chose is the perfect avatar I needed to hear his message. And I do believe this will be the first of many conversations I have with him. And I will definitely be hanging out with Darren soon too, but I have to hang out with Graham like 10 times before I hang out with Darren. But I just adore him. I adore his podcast. He reads awesome books. You guys should check those out too. You should do anything you can to totally support Grimerica. And I hope you enjoy this interview. And I hope you guys have a great week. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Project Chaney. And today I have one of the original gangsters of the game, in my opinion, Graham from Grimerica. How are you? Thanks for being here today.
Good, Chaney. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to chatting.
I know when I said original gangsters, you're already like, you can already think of 10 dudes that you listened to when you guys started your show.
Yeah, totally.
But I feel like as far as taking conspiracy shows to this whole next level of the accessibility that they are on podcasts, you guys were definitely one of the bricks in that wall. And
well, we felt we were too late. We questioned whether we were too late. This is back in 2012 or 2013. 2012 really is when we started talking about it. And it happened in 2013, and we thought, maybe we're too late. But I think it turns out that we weren't. And it just was a long, steady kind of, process of talking about all these different things. But we never expected it to really get into this too heavy conspiracies. Like, it ended up being sort of started out as ancient mysteries and the war on consciousness, right? But then it all starts to bleed together. So
there was so much spiritual shit you guys used to talk about on your show that I was just not, my logic just wasn't there. It couldn't even grasp the levels of it. And it's even nice to go back and listen. It's like a movie where you're like, I can watch this now just for the symbolism. That's how I feel about old episodes of yours. It was like parts of your guys' awakening were so far before anything my brain was even ready to comprehend, like colors I didn't know existed yet.
Yeah, isn't it strange how that happens? I've been noticing that for other types of conspiracies. Like, I'm just not ready for some. I'm just not there. I can't understand it. I can't accept it. I can't even comprehend it. But then there's some that that have been around for a few years now, and that they totally click.
Do you have like conspiracies that you're like so triggered by where you're like, I can't I almost did my friend's accent. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I'm not ready for the whole flat earth thing or the space is fake, and like, I just can't. I've tried a little bit. I just can't get to some of those those deeper ones.
I just can't even hardly grasp gematria. I mean, I get the concept. I know people keep trying to explain like A is 1, like I get it. I get the codex of it, but I don't get it. Like, what yeah, I even about to talk about it, just sent my brain into something that I felt myself take a deep breath, like I was about to. And I even felt all the people that are writing me like, I'll explain gematria to you.
Yeah, but to me, though, that equals the same as some of the other deeper synchromistic conspiracies, because what it brings up for me is this human or is it supernatural? Like, to me, that some of those things just end up being there because of some supernatural influence. It's not even, it can't even be designed or developed by humanity.
What's the like conspiracy? You're walking through a dinner party and you hear it out of the corner of your ear and somebody had you at Princess Di. Like, what's your what conspiracy? If you hear it, are you just like, I'm all in? Did you just say Titanic?
No, now or then, like
Or
at what point?
even
Right now,
just
or?
right now? Right now, you're walking through a party. What are some of the like still favorite juicy things that you're like, ooh, I love to hear anything new about that?
Right now it's kind of more mythological or esoteric for me, like the maybe like deep state Nazi type stuff, mythologies, magic, like secret societies, that kind of stuff. The 9/11 stuff and all that, and all the bigger kind of contemporary ones, and even UFOs is so strange how it's changed for me.
I feel that same one. Like, I don't have, not that the UFO, it's just too, it's pop songy. It's just felt too easy. Like the
Yeah,
information that
yeah.
we've been fed about aliens just feels like, and I don't know if it's my ego that if it's not hard, or my Scorpio that's like, if it's not a chase, I don't want it. That's how I feel
Yeah.
about aliens.
Yeah, how weird is it that I for years we talked about on the show, like Darren didn't really like this topic as much, but UFOs was a main interest of mine, and I always wanted disclosure, and disclosure to me was just the academia and the media acknowledging, and scientists, let's say, acknowledging, like I could care less about the government, but them just acknowledging that it's a mystery, that it's a real mystery, like it needs looking into. There's something there, and they wouldn't even do that, and now it's all over the media, and academia and the government are, and now I'm like, I don't believe the narrative. Not that I don't believe the narrative, there's just a reason why it's becoming public, and I don't really care
I just,
about it as much.
to me, if aliens exist in any way, our caveman idea of the technology that they would use to come here, like even a flying saucer, is caveman shit from a being
Yeah.
that could travel through space and time. Like
Yeah.
we're still creating a chariot of fire. It
Yeah.
still has this really basic, like, it's lacking dimension to me, and I really mean like 4D 5D thought of like,
Yeah.
it's interdimensional somewhere. I think in a way that usually the first question I ask is, who or what is God to you right now?
Yeah. I'm somewhat prepared because I listened to a couple of your last shows and they were great, and but that's an ever evolving thing. I mean, for me right now, it's kind of more about the universal energy, or the even the chi, or the prana, or this things are magical. We can manifest what we intend to manifest, and to me there's some sort of divine energy, or I mean, and it could even be, you could even think about it as intelligent design, but I don't think of it as a god. I think that there's also levels of demigods and gods, and it's kind of not as a religious one, but if you think back of all the mythologies and all the esoteric writings about fallen angels and gods and angels, like, I mean, I think there's like a spiritual hierarchy that we've just lost sight of in our modern age now. But the universal intelligence or something is there that we can connect to, and that could be, to me, that's kind of like God. Like, I pray to stay sober every day if I remember to a God, but that God's sort of always shifting. But it just means to me like there's a higher intelligence there.
Did you grow up in church?
Nope, not
Never
at
had
all.
to deal with any of that?
No, I went to church a little bit, Sunday school a tiny bit when I was a kid, but my parents were never really into it. They were pretty open-minded. But but when I got sober like 13 years ago, and a few months, like I reached out to a higher power, whatever that was. So I didn't like it as a religious God, but then I just started calling it God.
I know. I always wonder what that is, the spelling of it all. God, the dogma, the forward, backward, because the whole think mirror. And we know the Aleister Crowley where they do the upside down and reversal of words, ABBA type stuff. That I always wonder if God is the appropriate name for a source energy where we, and I don't even know about a source because it, to me, even the idea of a source energy like means like we go back there to come out again. We go back there to come out again. I kind of think right now it of a big circle, like always happening, like a top. It's always spinning and always happening. And even if you were to try to get to the center, you would kind of just come down the other side just as quickly. Yeah, I just can't think of a source in an octopus type way where we're just like tentacles connected by a head energy. I don't think of that anymore.
That's interesting. I feel like the more I learn, the more I'm unsure about everything. I mean, I remember hearing back years ago about what the governments learn, and this probably is totally not true, but what the governments learned about ETs from ETs was so complicated and deep and divine, I think you could say, that they just couldn't even comprehend it. They're like, humans can't even comprehend the universe and what's happening, you know, so complicated.
It would be so big. It would just be too big of an idea to grasp. Do you think
can't even explain it in words? You can't even think about it.
Are we the highest form of life in the third dimension?
I don't think so.
Though you think there's other things that are smarter than us that we can touch, feel, totally. Embrace, 100%,
like 100%. My answer is almost always like all of the above, or it's possible. Like once you acknowledge that, like, I don't know, ET life is possible, which I did a long time ago. Now I think now my view is a little bit different because I think there's way more high tech stuff going on behind the scenes that could be mistaken for ETs. But once I acknowledge like that's possible, anything's possible. Any like
giants,
you said about the higher, like the fourth dimensional stuff, and like, you know, ETs coming here interdimensionally. Like there's so many things that to me are real that I didn't think were real when I was younger. That, I mean, the sky's the limit. Like, how can anything not be possible? If you've acknowledged like a certain number of these mysteries, like anything's possible.
Isn't it so? Like your whole entire life, your logic spins trying to uncreate this fantasy world. And then somewhere in this quote unquote awakening, you realize all the shit, or at least for me, all the stuff, whether it's ghosts, demons, fairies, witches, werewolves, shapeshifters, like pretty much name it.
Yeah,
Frankenstein, exactly. Vampires. I'm like, all this things are real. I could relate them to some real lore and then give you real 1,000 years of history on any of these things throughout cultures all over the world.
Yeah.
That's where it's creepy.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Because you can go and you can start reading and researching it, and you can't ignore that. Like, it happened with UFOs. It happened, like, so many things we talk about on this show now are sort of like true-ish, because you can't ignore thousands and thousands of accounts of people. Like you can't just keep putting it in this unknown box and ignoring it. Like, we have to acknowledge that it's there's a reality to it. I mean, I played Dungeons and Dragons in school as a kid, and I've got this new interest in it now. But it's so different because as a kid in 85, 84, you know, of course, this was all a fantasy game and all that. And then, you know, I had this massive UFO sighting in 1990 when I was traveling around the Middle East and Europe. So I was only 20 years old then. And then, you know, now.
How long were you in Europe?
What's that?
Did you like leave after high school and save your money and were like, I'm going to backpack across to Europe?
I kind of, yeah. I got a buyout from a job I was in for only 3 years. I'm like, sure, I'll take that. We got a buyout, and me and a guy traveled around Europe. We kind of separated over there and we met up again, but
how long were you there?
For almost a year, about 10
months.
Oh,
shit. That's like one of the most romantic things that everybody would have on their bucket list of like just being free and backpacking. And were you you weren't sober at the time?
No.
I'm like,
No.
that is romantic.
Oh yeah, no. The problem is I didn't have enough reverence for that whole thing. I mean, I went around and it was great. Like it was an amazing experience. But if I would have traveled a month through Egypt now and 2 months in Israel, like I did, I mean, it would be so different. You know,
What's reverence to you?
just accepting the heaviness, the weight, the divine of possibility.
Were you at like monuments and land that your brain right now plays back and you're like, shit. Like,
Yeah,
totally, I had no idea I could have touched that.
I smoked the doob on the pyramid, you know, but that was kind of risky back then because drugs were bad in Egypt. Like we could have gotten lots of trouble, but you know, I spent all my effort trying to smoke a doob on the pyramid instead of like meditating in the king's chamber.
Would you do that? Like, would that be on your bucket list?
Yeah, we're going to go back to Egypt, or not. We're going to go back, but Darren's got us already hooked up with Ben from Uncharted X, and we're doing like a contact at the cabin sort of in Egypt, I think.
Oh, that just made my heart like jump for you guys. That seems like real. That's like, is it Thelema idea or is it like the Aleister Crowley thing? Like, I know it keeps peeling back, and I don't want to I know people get triggered to give Aleister Crowley any credit for anything. Yeah. I don't want to trigger it.
No, it's not any of that, I don't think. Yeah, that's funny. So,
he does
but
me
where,
too.
where was
it
I?
was
I feel like I've gone off track. There was some
you were talking about the 20 when you were traveling through Europe when you were 20.
Oh, yeah. So then getting interested in all this stuff and reading accounts and evidence. And because if you, like you were saying, if you dig down any of these sort of roads of research, I mean, whether it's like cryptids or Sasquatch or vampires or all the spiritual stuff, the astral traveling, the OBEs and NDEs and all that stuff. I mean, you know, the fantasy realm of D&D is a lot more real when I'm 50 years old compared to when I was 15 years old. I mean, it's crazy. All the magic, all the schools of magic. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like we have some control over our reality.
It's LARPing. It's a high form of sorcery, and you can look at it in any kind of a simple way. I always think for the brain to grasp it is a voodoo doll. You put intentions in something and then you can poke it and make things happen to it and cause harm. But generals would use this shit in battles, and they would carve out all their enemies' little figures and put it on one side, and they'd carve out all their generals and put it on the other side, and they play out these battles. But what would be even more powerful than that is me putting on an outfit and you putting on an outfit and acting it out. And that becomes like a LARP, and it's really high magic and spell casting. So something that I think kind of happened in 2020 is everybody grabbed a character and then LARPed it out, and we're kind of in the upside down of the world where everyone kind of believes in things they never believed in before because they're a D&D character.
You froze up right at the everyone believes.
Oh, I know I didn't. I was like, did it freeze up on my end or your end? Everyone kind of, it's your belief, which gets into the quantum idea of like the law of observation. So your belief in it, and then you start calling yourself this character. Then I start seeing you as that character, and then it gives you more power. And then if you get biblical with it, two in my name it shall be. So it's like you can kind of take all these schools of thought and mix them together. And I think a LARP is very powerful sorcery. So I love that adults are D&D-ing again.
Oh yeah, look at what the media is doing too, right? I mean, this is kind of what we're fighting against. You know, it's whether it's in whatever way, the media, the magic in the box. I mean, this is like running the world right now. It's crazy. It's so crazy what everything's going on right now. I mean,
what's going on up there in Canada? What's the new news?
Yeah, I mean, before I get into that, I want to kind of finish off the divine chat because I was thinking of when you asked the question like, what is God?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been so fortunate to read these books for like narrating these books that Darren's sort of publishing in audio, like The Secret Doctrine and The Secret Teachings of All Ages, which you've talked about a lot. I feel like we're farther away now from in the mainstream, like this materialistic society that we live in, because they're still sort of running the show. They're not running, they're only on the surface level, because most people below it, except for a small percentage, I think, understand there's more to life than this meaningless universe that they put us physically into. But at the surface level, they're kind of running the paradigm, and it's going to fall apart. I mean, it's falling apart pretty quick, even over the last 10 years, but they're so far away from what God is compared to all the ancient, like if you look at all the ancient myths and religions, like they're all closer than where our scientific paradigm is at. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of truth in all that, but we're not even close to the truth. And I mean, I don't think we'll ever get there. Like, I don't even care about that. For me, it's the journeying and the learning along the way. It's got to be fun. That part has to be fun, because I don't think we'll ever get to know. I mean, maybe in a sense through NDE or through some kind of
This meeting is being recorded.
Oops. I just was like, let me do it on the Zoom just in case we lose, any of it, so I can edit it later. So sorry to interrupt you. I did not know that lady was going to do that.
Yeah. That's
How
okay.
creepy. Yeah. Sorry.
Maybe truth can come through death or something like that. But I mean, other than that, like through learning and experiencing stuff, like, I don't know. I mean, I've heard these people talk that have had encounters with like certain death, NDEs, that kind of stuff, and they have like literal special powers now. They have supernatural stuff happening, and I kind of believe them. I think they're authentic, and they seem to know more of like the state of reality. But even they don't agree, all of them. There's still even a disagreement among them, whether there's good and evil, or whether we should suffer, or whether we don't need to suffer. All those like huge questions are still up in the air.
You said something earlier about like demigods and gods, and I kind of am in that somewhere. I think all the religions all mixed together in one, all the fantasy, and somewhere I do think there was less whatever with a pure bloodline, and there's powers that be on this planet that know about those bloodlines, and that's why they breed. And that's also why I think that they want to swab our nose and our throat and get our DNA so bad, and trying to figure out who we are and whatever illnesses they put into us so we can stay in some medical system so they can dumb us down. I think it's all very, to me, I know it's so how orchestrated I think it is. People think it's impossible to be that orchestrated.
Yeah.
But I think it's so orchestrated. I think like down to the detail of that every show you watch, everything that we think when they tell us on a show, like Facebook is doing blank. Did you know that your TV is doing blank? Whatever they tell us, yes, that's exactly what they built that thing for. Like it wasn't built for any other reason but for that thing, and they have to reveal the method to you, and then we go from there. But I think our whole entire reality, every single part of your education, every part of your parents' upbringing, is all about their system of control that has led us to right now.
Do you think that the revelation is to make us not believe as well? Because like to me, they used to make movies and TV shows out of stuff to make it seem like fiction when it's really not fiction. Or is that just an added benefit of revealing the method so that they cleanse their karma or whatever?
Like almost like Harry Potter. If we're waking up as a collective, that we're all slowly pulling these ideas from the aether, the quote unquote bad guys know it too. So they would collectively be like, we have to put out all this magician shit. So once people start feeling this, questioning this, even the symbolism that they use in Harry Potter, they write this book on committee. They give it all the fame to this woman because it just feels like, look, she was just a single mom. It feels so good. But really, I think there's so much truth in stuff like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and it's all put out. So if you actually instinctively feel this, astral travel, have these thoughts, the second you say it to somebody, it's in a movie in my brain. So you're talking crazy and I move on. And that keeps me really third dimensionally locked into the paradigm they create.
Do you think it can backfire though if they throw enough symbolism and enough like, for example, the occult and magic right now? I mean, it's so popular. It's getting to the point where people that you'd never think would even try anything like that or believe that anything's possible. Can that backfire on them? I mean, because what if so many people wake up to intention being meaningful, you know, and symbolism and magic and all that? I mean, what if it backfires?
I think it's the same as the internet. I think everything backfires on them because we are the creative ones. They can't create anything. So we are the ones that have to come up with the movie script of 9/11 for the lizards to be like, oh, that's a good idea. I think that's why they want us to keep talking on Facebook. If they could create the human brain and imagination, no matter what computer they create, it's like the inspiration of a great song or a beautiful painting. Can a computer do that? Can a dog? Like, there's just something about humans that's really special. And whatever that is, I'm actually going to release a podcast. It'll be this awesome Reiki energy healer named Bianca. And she told me a whole story about the jinn.
Wow.
And I never had known the whole story, that they were like the first ones here before humans. And then God told the jinn to bow down, like his favorite jinn to bow down to his favorite creation. And the dude was like, the jinn, the head fire dude, because they were made out of fire. We were made out of mud. I'm probably telling you something. You're like, I know this.
No.
Oh, okay. But he was like, so pissed he refused, and it was the only thing. The angels all bowed to the humans, all the other things bowed to the humans, but the jinn were like, no, we're not bowing to the humans. So he made a deal with God and said, give us a certain amount of time to prove that they're not your highest creation. And then and whatever the deal was, I think it was 6,000 years or 3,000 years or something, give us 3,000 years. And God said, okay, because nobody's ever smited me before. No one ever not bowed when I said bow. So he was kind of impressed. So that's what we're in right now.
Wow, that's fascinating. That goes right back to, you know, like ancient mythology and D&D and all that stuff, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Did you ever, and because I'm bouncing around and I know we just talked about something in between, but did you ever experience psychedelics before you were sober? Were you into that?
Yeah, but again, lack of reverence, you know, too much partying, too much drinking. Like I was always trying to look, I was kind of looking for that trip. Like, remember doing acid when we were younger, and I heard about cartoon acid. I don't know if you'd ever heard about cartoon acid back in the 80s and early 90s. And it was supposed to be hallucinogenic, right? I mean, you'd see cartoons, and I mean, I was always looking for that extra kind of like hallucination or deep sort of thing. But we were just partying too much, you know. We're just, I mean, I dug mushrooms and stuff for a while and that kind of stuff, but still just alcohol seemed to get in the way, or, you know.
Did you have a rock bottom with alcohol that you were like, oh shit, like, or was it just a slow
with coke and alcohol?
Like a whole a long time or one event?
Oh no, it was like over years, you know, coalescing into like, okay, like I got busted basically from a girlfriend at the time. But I hid everything from everybody, like my family, my girlfriend. Like I hid how fucked up I was pretty damn good from everybody.
It's weird how cocaine and alcohol balance each other in a weird way like that.
It's insanity. I know, because it just keep, you know, you do more blow and then you drink more to come down and then you do more to come back up. And I mean, it's just a constant roller coaster.
It's crazy.
And you can drink. And once you start doing coke and drinking, you can drink all night long.
All night.
And it's, but if you don't, then you're just
wasted.
I was a fucking mess without it. Right.
Yeah. And it's like Coke. If you were just on Coke without booze, you're like, whoa, this guy's shot out of a cannon. But something about them together are really, and the spirit of alcohol is so low, and Coke's got to be right there, even though it makes you feel up. there just seem like two very heavy energies. Are you of the school of thought that you open yourself up to like you become low vibe and open yourself up to like carrying that with you?
Yeah. I think so.
Demonic is a weird word to say.
Yeah. But that's okay. I don't mind saying that. I mean, I think that there's some of that. You know, people say that's why it's called spirits and all that, but yeah, what was I going to say about that? So I got, it brought me to the point where, I got sort of found out and then everything fell apart, but I didn't plan on stopping drinking at the time. I thought I just got to get rid of these hard drugs and I'll keep having wine or whatever. Then something clicked in rehab. I was like, holy fuck, alcohol's been the problem all along too. Like, it's always been there, you know. That was always sort of an issue, and I had these other chronic spurts with other things, whether it was weed or coke or whatever, but alcohol was always there.
Did your girlfriend stay with you through it all?
Yeah, and we lasted like 3 years after that, and then I left her after 3 years. It was
sober.
It wasn't a good relationship. Even like, I mean, of course, a lot of it was my fault, but there was also some other issues as well that just.
Isn't that, they say, kind of part of the program is a lot of the relationships you made in your addiction probably aren't going to be there out of your addiction.
Yeah.
Was that heartbreaking, or, well, you left. So, I mean, did it feel weird, like guilty to leave somebody that was with you?
Yeah.
No one ever talks about that end of it. Everybody.
Oh yeah, it was super hard. I mean, we tried really hard to make it work, and it just wouldn't work. You know.
Was your family all like exhausted of your addiction by that point, or were they just like, nah, that's who he is?
No, they didn't really know until I told them. My sister knew. She knew that something was up.
And you had to do a full rehab.
They didn't know how bad it was, so I did the whole rehab. Yeah, I went there like for 3 months, basically.
And how oldish were you at this?
So I was 30, 37, 38.
Oh, wow. And so I said wow because this is so horrible. I thought of like doing cocaine in like New York, like CBGBs, or like, whoa, dude, like what kind of life was it that you had? Because you said during the 80s, and it just seems like coke in the 80s is like, it's a whole vibe. It was a whole vibe in the 80s.
No, this was like early 2000s. It got bad sort of like 2008 when I got sober.
Oh, okay.
So mid 2000s. Yeah.
So you just dibble dabbled as a kid and other shit growing up. And then had you tried coke in your youth and then got addicted to it later on as an adult?
Yeah.
That's what a lot of my friends that had coke addictions had totally made it through this youthful time of playing with it, and it grabbed them somewhere in their 30s. A lot of people.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And it was one of those things where I did it and I could feel the power of it, but I was able to leave it for, you know, a couple of weeks or a couple of months or whatever. But then it got to a point where then in my mid 30s, I was looking for it, and I found an easy way to get it. Like, it was like, call this number, get it delivered. And then it was just like go time, you know, and then it became a guilt and a shame thing. And then
your body feels like shit without it. You can't get up, and your nose is all I don't know how you did it, but it's like you always sound like you have a cold. It hurts. Your throat hurts all the time. It's like a whole.
Oh, it's fucking.
It's such the worst.
It's suffering like you wouldn't believe. It really is. I remember going to like events, like public events and stuff, and my nose is either like super runny or it's super stuffed, and I'm just like, I just don't want to be anywhere. Like, I don't want to be anywhere. It's just a struggle to exist. It's so weird. And
the last time I dibble dabbled at all in coke was so long ago. Probably in that same time frame in Vegas. But I just remember at some point being with a guy friend of mine and looking in a bathroom mirror and legitimately feeling like the Joker from Batman. Like I just was like, I felt like, like just mad, like a mad hatter. Like it just did not feel, I was like, what is happening? And I wasn't at that point, I had gone through my run of the mill with Coke where I was the friend that I did Coke so sporadically that everyone would buy it for me if I ever wanted to do it. They were like, yay.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, I don't think ever again. I didn't like any of the feeling. It didn't even, from even the nostalgia that I had, it was so gross. It felt methy to me. And speed drugs. I'm such a pothead that it's not. It's such the opposite. But I think I'm shot out of a cannon normally. I think I need to kind of mellow out. I can't. But emotionally, I was such a bitch without cocaine. Like the biggest bitch. And it preoccupied every single second when I was out. I could be having a good time with great people. And then I'd be like, you know what would make this better? A little cocaine. And ew, it really didn't make anything better. It just made me an asshole with 3 times the amount of things to say.
Yeah, it was like occasionally you'd have this beer commercial moment, but other than that, you're just always hoping for that moment that would never come, you know. But it would happen. It's almost like an analogy of the conspiracy and the truth that's in stuff, because you know every once in a while you'd have that amazing night, but for the most part, it just never happened.
Chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
Here's dragons or dinosaurs.
Dragons.
Do you think dinosaurs are real?
See, that's another one I'm not ready for, you know. I'm just not ready for that conspiracy. I've heard a little bit of it and I'm like, yeah, maybe one day, but I'm just not ready for it.
For me, I'm like, okay, I don't really get down on dinosaurs at all because we're not talking about dragons anywhere. How are none of those museums talking about dragons? But we know they're existent throughout every culture. Marco Polo talks about them and everything else is true in there. And it's just really, I won't get down on your fantasy that I know you wrote about in the book in the 1900s before you discovered this thing, or 1800s. So I'm like, I'll play in your dinosaur world if you start giving me some dragon stuff.
What's their excuse for that? The dragons, that people looked at dinosaur bones and called them dragons? Is that still the mainstream kind of?
I think so.
Explanation of dragons, like.
Yeah, I think so. And I think Marco Polo's like account of them that it is he saw them pulling carts.
Wow.
So, yeah, I just don't even understand but some things too, I'm like, okay, either way, dinosaurs real or not, I can move on.
I think a lot of this stuff is so fascinating from a genetic memory level. Like I'm starting to really think that like Lord of the Rings and these fantasy kind of tropes is probably, I don't like that word really, but I think we're interested in it because there's some genetic memory, or there's some sort of inherent memory from past ages gone by where there was more magic and dragons and giants and dwarves and elves. And I mean, we already know there's giants and there's been hobbits discovered, like accepted by mainstream science, you know, all the megalithic structures. And what about the power systems and the ley lines? I mean, it was completely different past, I think, without this distraction of technology. I mean, imagine what we could do. Like we know about sort of magic and intention now. Imagine what we could do with a real acceptance of that, whether it's like vocal sort of humming or symbolism. I mean, so many things.
Worldwide, building everything with that kind of, it's, people aren't ready for this one, but I just have the Tesla conspiracy where Tesla and Edison were still the McDonald's and Burger King of shit, trying to make us believe we needed power at all. Like, I think humans can see in the dark just fine. I think they probably could feel warm or cold or work their body out in such a way. Wim Hof proves us this right now. So I think these things, some of them that we consider superpowers, were just things we innately did. I think we could talk to each other without this communication. You in Canada, me in Florida, and we could just do this in our brains and share this amount of information in no time flat. And there would be people in our villages that could sit in certain things and communicate together. I just don't think we need to be illuminated.
Yep. Just like Caroline Corey showed in her movie Superhuman. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but they're teaching kids how to see without their eyes, right? I mean, kids are playing around, and adults too can learn, but it's harder for us to learn. But you go through all these tests where you blindfold your eyes, like literally blindfold them, and they can see, they can read without their eyes. I mean, this is,
Wow.
I think this is real, exactly what you're talking about. We have these abilities.
Do you have you ever seen Stan Lee's Superhumans?
No, I don't think so.
It's real comic, but I'm such a comic book nerd, so anything I saw Stan Lee's name on. And so there was a series that was out, and it was, they probably just put his name on it to sell it, but it was called Superhumans. And Wim Hof, that's where I first heard about him, but it was like dudes that could bang their head through any piece of wood, or a blind kid that could ride a bike and he would click and he could hear his sound echo off things, so he could just ride a bike like a bat sees by his audio. And so it was just all these really great stories of humans that their brain was teaching their body how to do things that everything in science says wasn't true. And they would take this human to run a bunch of tests on him in labs, and even with Wim Hof, to be like, nope, his heart rate stays here. His temperature is actually way different than everybody else's. Like, to prove whatever the superhuman, to show you, nope, this is actual real science, not sorcery. Or here's some science behind the sorcery that we really can't explain the sorcery, but here's proof.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. And who knows how much of that's coming from our past lives or from genetic memory. Like, they've sort of, and again, science has kind of shown that we have this memory passed through, right? From trauma survivors, from people from World War II. There's all this kind of proof that something is held within our genes, or maybe it's like morphic resonance, that kind of thing that gives us this, I don't know, this interest in things.
I totally remembered when you were in Europe on your year-long, you saw a UFO.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So I was kind of interested a little bit in UFOs prior to that, which is kind of interesting because that was like the late 80s. Like, I graduated from school in 88, and then I went to Europe in 1990. And I was in Israel with a bunch of friends. We were staying in a rooftop hostel in Tel Aviv. So I was on this rooftop hostel. So it's like pretty much in the city, I guess. I can't remember the whereabouts in the city, and I came up onto the roof, and my friends were over on the corner, and they were all pointing up at the sky, and they're yelling, "Look, we see this object, this UFO type thing." So I ran over to them, and I'm like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And they're explaining that they see this thing did this 90-degree turn up in the sky, and I was pissed off because I missed it. So I was like looking up at the sky, going, "Please come back, please come back. I want to see you too. I want to see you." And then I saw this polygonal shape object. I mean, it's almost like an icosahedron or a dodecahedron.
Okay.
Almost like that.
Like a D&D die.
Yeah, like a D&D die. And it was split in half, and the halves were rotating slowly against themselves, and the whole thing was also rotating on its axis slowly. And it was shining off the moonlight. There was a 3/4 moon, and it was about a loonie, or let's say a dollar coin at arm's length. And I was like, is that it? Is that it? And they're saying, yeah, that's what it is. That's what we saw. And it just slowly went across the sky, silently, in airspace, and then disappeared. Not disappeared, but just like faded away. And then I was, they saw it twice. I saw it once. It's funny how later on, after starting the podcast, I got in touch with 2 Kiwi girls that were actually there, and they just didn't think anything of it. But me and this English guy named Dave, and I can't find him anywhere, but because it's just interesting to see how did that affect their life, or did it affect their life? The girls, they just said, they just chalked it up to some drunken experience or whatever. But me and Dave talked to our kibbutz, the guy we worked for in the kibbutz, because we stayed in this kibbutz in Israel. Kind of like,
what's a kibbutz?
It's a self-sufficient farm community.
Okay,
So
that's awesome.
A lot of travelers from all over the world just go, and so we were picking cotton in the cotton fields at like 5 a.m, up for the sunrise, and the jackals in the fields and all this, and we'd pick cotton with the tractors.
That's a beautiful life.
It was pretty cool. So you kind of stop time, like as you're traveling around. You don't really make a lot, but you work to live there. You kind of learn how the kibbutz runs and the farming aspect of it and all. And we experienced like helicopters and planes going by, breaking the sound barrier. We were up in the Golden Heights, basically in between Syria and Lebanon.
Wow.
But we talked to the guy, our Jewish, was he Jewish? I don't even know what. I mean, you know, I don't even know. I guess so. But we talked to him and he's like, oh, there's no such thing as UFOs. And we're like, dude, we saw it in Tel Aviv. So that kind of just blew open my whole world, because I didn't know. I don't know if I thought, did I think of it as ET back then? Probably. But lately it's just like, who knows what that could be? I don't know what it is, right? Could be some Israeli thing. I mean, I was watching sightings in the 90s and I saw one account, a lady in Israel that saw a similar object. And other than that, I've never heard anybody talk about that object. All other kinds of shapes, but not that one.
I know. I never heard that shape, even out of the things I seen, and it gives me like Merkaba vibes. Like you saw something
sacred geometry wise. Like that's what's so crazy now about the platonic solids, and I'm just fascinated by. Like I do this dodecahedron meditation now because that's supposedly the shape of the universe. The universe is made up of like platonic solids, you know, so dodecahedrons and stuff.
How do you spell that?
Dodecahedron?
Yeah, or like just the first few letters, just so.
So it's DOD, dodec, so ECH, hedron, like HEDRON, something like that. Yeah.
Is how many sides is a dodecahedron?
That's a 12-sided.
Okay.
And then the icosahedron is the 20-sided.
That's awesome to know.
Yeah.
Are you into all geometry, all sacred geometry like that?
Well, kinda, not super, but I mean, I just ordered a bunch of crystals in those platonic solid shapes. But I heard some fascinating guests, like they were doing like intention with dodecahedrons and making plants grow differently out of season and all kinds of stuff. And then of course, Nassim Haramehn's work and all the Resonance Foundation, and you get to Randall Carlson's sacred geometry work, and when you start looking at Plato and the solids that he says are all intertwined and sacred, all the angles and all the numbers, and it gets pretty deep.
Are you into Plato, like philosophy and?
I can't quote him and all that. I do find it all fascinating. I mean, just read lots of books recently with that kind of stuff, but I can't tell the difference between.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you were to say.
I don't know how these people
Socrates or Plato.
Like, oh my God,
Nietzsche. I know their names, but I wouldn't know their quotes differ from each other. Like I could talk about philosophy to average people, and they'd be like, "Whoa, Chaney knows her shit." But if you took more than philosophy 101, you'd be like,
yeah. I mean, I like the Hermes Trismegistus stuff and the Hermeticism, that like the 7 laws and principles back then, like they're talking about vibration, and so much of that is
interesting. He gets to that
interesting
demigod, where what we were just talking about, where he's actually somebody in a line where you can have him attached to humans and then attached to gods. Like, isn't he part of the God tree? And that's crazy.
Yeah.
That we actually, I mean, in a Jesus way, I guess I was about to say, we actually have this like in between from source to us that's given us writings. But I'm like, oh, I guess that's all the writings that we're allowed to have. Like I was giving Hermes all this extra right now. I'm like, wow, that's so amazing. Okay, extra nerdy. Dungeons and Dragons character. We're living the LARP right now, 2021. What's your character?
Oh, I have a whole bunch of them, but one guy is we play this older version, and he's like a fighter hexblade. He's like a mix between a monk, a fighter, a hexblade, and an occult slayer now. So he's got all this sort of, he's like anti-magic but magic at the same time.
How explain it a little.
So he's like, he can hex people. He's got a hex ability, and he's got some resistant to magic, but he's also got a few spells that he can work with. But he's also a fighter that can bash. Like he's got all this special abilities. Like he's a well-rounded kind of like he'll he'll go toe to toe in melee battles against anything, like can trip and disarm and do all this crazy stuff. But he's also got like some resistance to magics and a few spells of his own.
That's fun. Do you ever get down on the video games that are like where you create the characters and that kind of?
No, it's all on paper. It's all like online and on paper, and from a Dungeons and Dragons perspective. So it's most of it's just theater of the mind and imagination, and based on a rule set and the mechanics of the game and all that, but not really video game.
I feel like I live my life in a LARP.
Yeah.
I just run it in a way like, okay, create this character and do this thing, and this avatar and Earth game has these superpowers. It has these Achilles heels. It looks like this, so it's allowed to say these things because the rules that we live in say that certain avatars aren't allowed to say certain things, but others are. And so this avatar is allowed to get away with saying the certain amount of stuff that it's part of the it's almost like you have to figure out whatever your fear is or whatever that the earth has put against you, that they're like, you're not allowed. That has to be the stuff you go against. And you're yes, I am allowed. I love a LARP. It's all for a LARP.
So what's your thought on, like, I was going to talk about, like, speaking of sort of UFOs and ETs and all that before I forget. I mean, because when you were talking about ETs, there's so much skeptical. There's so much. And I'm kind of there too. Like, I don't know what to believe, but I've gone out with people. Like, I started looking for UFOs in the 90s when I got back from Israel. And then I lost that interest. I didn't really see anything. Like, I'd go out with people for the CSETI stuff. Like, this is back before Greer came up with his like, I remember the guy that I'd go out with was talking about Stephen Greer doing his disclosure thing, which he did in 2001, a few months before 9/11. But we'd go out and I didn't really see anything, but I was hanging around with people that had saw UFOs, and we kind of all had our own sightings, or some people were just wanting to have sightings, but nothing really happened. And then I lost all that as I got into the corporate life and the drugs and the alcohol and all that, like just sort of falling into that whole drifting rat race, also playing pretty competitive hockey and ball hockey and sports and stuff along the way, like just sort of playing hard, working hard, But then I lost that whole interest for a while. And then now in Calgary, I started going out and doing the CE5, and we'd see stuff. Like, we'd see fucking flash bulbs and these low flying silent objects all lit up, like stuff that's just not, it's not air. It's not planes. Something's communicating with us, I don't know, but we'd go out there as a group, meditate, and we'd see shit.
If you know Stephen Greer, I live in Vero Beach, Florida. So it's like the spot where he sat on the beach in his video where he's I'm going to call the UFOs.
The lights on the horizon.
I sit with my guy best friend, even when my conspiracy logic brain didn't believe in UFOs, or even when I delved into flat earth and realm shit with firmament. I could sit anytime with my guy best friend. I don't know why it's him and I together. I can do it sometimes alone, but 100% of the time when we're together, especially if we're talking about it, like if you were with us right now and we were talking about it, we'd be like, all right, let's hang out. Within a half hour, we never not see a UFO. And like you're saying, we've seen a cloaked ship once. We've seen a low flying. I thought it was a triangle, but I didn't. It was triangular formation. It wasn't. I thought it was 3 separate ships.
Right.
But as I replay it in my head so much, and it wasn't lit up as much as it was gathering the light from the ground, like Portland. It was flying over Portland, so it was like the city lights were hitting it more than it was illuminated.
Wow.
And my buddy Emmanuel, he only saw 2, but I felt like how we were laying, like it was tilted a little. Like one of them looked smaller, so we couldn't tell if it was 3 in formation or one thing all attached with these like orbs on it. The cloak ship was the craziest and slowest of all of them, where we wouldn't have seen it at all if there wasn't like this low misty cloud going on in Florida. And that happened right when 14 days to flatten the curve, when all the flights stopped. we could see all the private planes just flying over because we live in a town right on the Atlantic. So anyone going to the islands or anything or leaving New York City, it was like a flea from New York. It was just private plane after private plane after.
Wow.
And so we just happen to be like laying on a deck staring at planes because they were all flying so low. And this cloaked ship, like it looked like the Predator, like that, how it was you could see like behind it, like it was a mirror or something.
Yeah.
But that was the weirdest one to me. He still thinks the 3 orbs was the weirdest. But the dots in the sky, the lights that people are like, that's a satellite, that's a satellite. I have satellite trackers all over my phone. I know when they're satellites and not, and I know how fast they're moving. I've seen the Starlink a few times, which the first time I saw it, I was like, I really thought we were being invaded. I was like, look at that UFO. Because I see them enough, it's like seeing a dolphin in the ocean. Like, oh, there's a UFO. Look at that moving light. Look at that. Oh my gosh, look at that moving light. Oh my gosh, there's another one. Oh my God, they're coming out of the horizon. I thought, and it was just recently that it all went up. So I'm like, oh, it's blue beam. Here we go.
Yeah. So after saying all that, what do you think? I mean,
technology. I think China, like for whatever this East versus West paradigm of whatever the real God rules are that are going on past levels that we know, I think they're technologies that I don't think Russia, since that's always been the fear they've tried to sell us, that Russia, America, I'm like, whatever. They're probably not even the most powerful 2 countries on the planet. They're just like Captain America versus the Red Russian Bear or something. But I do think like Roswell is technology, and even doing the alien type coverage that they got this alien craft, it puts a whole bunch of fear in other countries that, ooh, America has technology. They just discovered something that we don't know. That stuff being said of ships and stuff is separate from interdimensional portals and like time breaking, space breaking shit, which like what you saw, like a shape, a glowing plasma shape. And I've heard other people like that's interdimensional shit. Like I think there are 2 separate things going on in our skies.
Well, which one did you mean about the glowing plasma shape?
Like that seems interdimensional. Like that's
which sighting was that?
The one that you saw. Yeah,
the Israel
in
one
Israel.
Or the other one?
Oh, wait.
No, the Israel one was
Tel
more
Aviv.
of like
Tel Aviv.
No, that was more of a craft.
Oh, okay.
It looked like a metallic.
Yeah, the Israel one, then the lady saw. Yeah. That just seems like crazy next level energy shit. Like I feel like everything I've seen so far, except for the cloaked one, that's where I was like energetically my brain couldn't comprehend it. Everything else looked like technology. So that thing that you described, that's where I'm like, there's definitely realm things of like stargates or something that my brain can't even comprehend. But I don't think it's like an alien in a ship traveling from Mars and like, hey guys, buckle up, make sure you pack your cooler, we'll be there soon. And then they come and they're like, let me pick up a guy from a trailer park and study him like a cow. I just think that idea is looshing, like a fearing us of like
maybe that's interesting. I feel like it is the problem I have with that is I feel like this is the time to view Earth from a tourist perspective. Like if you were running a tourist company of other planets, I mean, this is when you go see Earth, when we're either this close from blowing ourselves up, or we're this close from leaving the planet, or some people are leaving the planet, or maybe they have been for hundreds of years, who knows, but we're at the point where stuff's happening, I feel like this is the time when people would come and see us.
I feel like it's like more of the God in flesh idea. Like they would, if you were interdimensional and high, whatever, something high magic, you would almost, to come see us, you couldn't do it from a plane window. You'd have to be us. You'd have to put on the flesh of us and play a part.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's both, all the above again.
Doesn't it? I look at like Britney Spears now as, or even Princess Diana, we all look at them as famous and as free as could be, but they might be the most caged person on the planet. That idea that we look at these people with power, like even Biden and Trump of it all. But really, they might just be the caged, most stringed puppet on the planet. And if you could direct a bunch of real things with a puppet, that's where it gets like our intentions, like our power has to be something that's so fucking radical and important, or they wouldn't have to have every TV, every chemical, every actor, everything trying to direct us into another narrative.
They wouldn't need ice cream to jab 12-year-olds in Canada.
Are you guys being forced to get vaccinated?
Well, they're right now. This is so weird, dude. What's happening? I cannot believe what's happening. I'm constantly blown away by what's happening.
You can't believe it because you always knew it.
All this stuff we talk about in the fantasy kind of realm and this magic, and look what's happening in, like you said, this IRL, this LARPing in real life. I mean, they are talking about now. These kids do not need parental consent. This is happening all over the country of Canada. I'm not saying all over, but I've seen it in separate provinces. They're putting up clinics in Toronto to jab kids without their parental consent from 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old. 12, I think I don't know what the Pfizer's approved or pre-approved or whatever that you want to call it, from 12 to 16 now. Maybe Moderna too, but there's, I think, something at 13 in Saskatchewan at least. I don't know about Ontario. And they're offering kids ice creams. They got an ice cream. Come by and get an ice cream after you get your jab. And the parents some of them are freaking out because they're like, "Wow, you can't just lure my kids in to get this experimental jab without my permission if they're 13 years old." I mean, are you kidding me? Like, what's going on?
What's happening? Do you have kids?
No.
It's crazy to me how invested. I don't know what a calling is. I think I do. I don't have kids either, but something about this, whatever, I'll die on this hill. Like, this is the hill of, yeah, we can talk about pedophiles if you want. We can talk about, satanic ritual if you want, but just the mask and vaccine of it all. And not just this vaccine, all the vaccines. Like, this is where it's like, glad you guys are to the vaccine party. Like, shit, glad you guys are just woken up to it. But just this, it's horrifying to me, the amount of ailments that we're giving to our kids on an everyday, and the amount of people that still stand up for this thing, but they're at a point that they've given this poison to their kid. So their cognitive dissonance has to protect them because they can't have any piece of being responsible for giving that to their child. And so they have to, everything in them has to stand on the other side of that. Otherwise, they're responsible for that, their lack of knowledge. And I am not putting any responsibility on them. I feel like you are conditioned, you are brainwashed, you are feared to give that to your kid. And you have to let that go so we can all move on and stop giving this shit to now not just our kids, our fucking old people and each other. And what's happening? Yeah. This is the biggest revelation of the method.
Seeing it happen to people that you know and love, and seeing them say, I want to give it to my kids, like my 11, 12-year-old kid. That's just, I just, because of some peer pressure. And then what are people doing? It's just, I don't know. I can't. It's hard to watch. It's hard to.
Just with
hard to see.
Like aborted fetal cells, heavy metals, animal DNA, and that's just every other vaccine. That's not this one that has like, hey, we're going to tell you, we're going to tell you it will cause cancer and legitimately change your DNA to the core of its structure. That's what this one's going to do.
And it says right in the Pfizer thing, we're still undergoing observance of the clinical trials with kids. Like, it tells you in the document that they're not done. They're still observing it. Like, it's so, because they just changed it from 16 to 12, and I watched the change on the fucking document. It's just gross, right? And people are just, oh yeah, no problem.
And I'm like, okay, I'll go with your idea. Let me use your brain to fight with you. So I'll only find articles from your sources that you trust, and I will tell you all vaccines need a minimum of 15 years to be approved. You are in the middle of a study that's less than a year old. What is happening?
Doesn't matter. You can't say, you cannot use, or you can take all the Pfizer documents you want, all the government documents, all the information, and it just doesn't matter now. They're just so far gone that it doesn't even matter. It's just all this pressure. And then, like you said, you can't blame them, because I mean, if I don't watch the news, but every time I have like see 5 minutes of it, it's like, holy, like no wonder why these people are losing it, right? But when you're looking at the other side of it, like it just goes so deep, and there's so much information contradicting the mainstream narrative from every piece of the puzzle.
Every back and forth. You can find any one person that you want to pick as your trusted person. You can find that person arguing with himself.
Yeah.
And they've done it to you on purpose. So you don't trust anyone, and you're arguing with your friends and neighbors, and you're both pulling articles from the same person telling you the opposite side. It's all by design, and why you give your 3-year-old something that makes your because like for women, we are inside of our grandma. Like as our mom is being born, her eggs are being born with her. So we are in our grandma. So if our grandmother is getting vaccinated with anything, we are affected. And so to just think of it in levels, that what you give your 3-year-old is 3 generations away from real consequences that you may or may not know about. And it's just really, it's a lot of responsibility, but it should be a lot of responsibility. We've in America, in poorer communities, and it's sad it's a lot more minority communities, but our prisons are just filled because they've taken the father out of the home everywhere. And if they take the father out of the home everywhere, they make the government the daddy. And if the government's the daddy, then it's so easy to tell a mom what to do instinctively against her own nature. Like a mom can pull a kid out of her own vagina, clean out its eyes, and walk through the forest and go on about her day. Like ladies are made to do this shit. And well, not all pregnancies, I know. But guess what? America, with their first world medicine that you like to tout, has like the highest infant death mortality rate. So give me a break. It's even their contradiction of their own medicine is just ludicrous. But that they find safety in the daddy arms of the government, and to pay their bills, to send them a stimulus check. And Chaney, that's our money back. I know. Look how excited you are about your money back. Think about what you're saying. Like, and look at with all that money, where is it going? All the other money that you're not getting back. Where are you giving your money to? Who's deciding where your money's going?
Yeah. So how do you handle this from being in the States, in Florida, even? Because this is to me, one of the biggest challenges is how do we observe this without getting too connected to it, letting it like sort of with a non-attached appreciation, like the sort of the Buddhist thing, like observe what's happening, but don't get sucked right into the negativity, because we can manifest our own future to a certain extent. But I mean, is there going to be some point where we, where even if we're aware of this, we can't manifest it because it's coming down so hard? And do we need to prepare for that? Or it's because Darren and I always have this discussion about talking whether we should talk about this on the show, and he's like, well, because I think he feels like people that are black pilled are kind of manifesting this to happen as well, like manifesting their own reality. And I'm like, well, you got to watch what's going on and see what's coming. I mean, you can't just be surprised and caught off guard. But I mean, maybe we could be. Maybe the naivety is a way to go. I mean, just. I don't know. It's such a weird time right now.
I'm so blessed. I'm in a county in a state, in a country. I feel like my micro to macrocosm is so entirely different than so many people I love around the world, of the freedom I live in. And then the support system that I built myself as I had my spiritual break. But part of my spiritual breakdown was because I wouldn't put that fucking mask on. And so I had to walk away from my entire career, which was my money god.
Good for you. It was so awesome.
It was a lot. It really, and I was going to walk away from it was just, there was something deep in my soul. I never felt a faith with God, but there was something in me that was like, you can't do that. Like, no matter what, if you have to walk out of the door of your own house and be homeless, this is what you have to do. And sometimes it feels silly when you're thinking of like an infant getting a vaccine, but there was just something about that fucking mask, that walking away from the job, walking away from the pressures and that, the fight or flight, the trauma of surviving. That's what we don't all realize when we're adding to our money and then adding to our houses and our cars and our things. We're making our hamster wheel harder to drag around, and that's adding trauma to us every day. And we're so living in it so much that we can no longer create. We're no longer hear what our God purpose is or our Christ energy put us here for. And that's how we're part of the demonic system. We think we're being a quote unquote good person by, paying our taxes and getting our vaccines and sending our kids to school from 7:30 to 2:30 and getting off on the weekends. And somewhere I fucking broke. And it was all from that stupid fucking mask that
wow.
It snapped me. Like,
that's fantastic.
And
I mean,
yeah,
I just quit. I just left my job too. Right. I'm in it's a really weird time for me right now because I had this full-time job. I've been in this like operations management realm for so long. Like if I took both my careers, kind of add them up, it's like 20, 23, 24 years. And I'm so done with like trying to organize things. Like I just want to be doing something else. So it is super hard super hard. But I feel like it would have happened earlier if I had to mask. Like if I had to mask at work, I probably wouldn't have lasted so long. I left not because of COVID. The work environment in that regard was pretty good, although people were wearing masks in there and all that. But I feel like that would have been sort of my thing too. Like I will not take this job no matter what. And I think, and I don't want to manifest this, and it's hard to like, how do I stay positive and plan and be aware? Seems to be the trick. But
I always just
are they going to come by? Are they going to come by? Are they going to like what are they going to? Are they going to hunt us down? I mean, that's a possibility eventually.
So when I first discovered FEMA camps, it's like the worst case scenario for me. My mentor in conspiracy and truth was this amazing dude. Hopefully he'll be on my show one day. He just lives his life in such an enigma, like that his name is Jeff Friesen, and he was just so much further past anything. I still am coming across stuff that I'm like, oh my God, this is what Jeff Friesen meant.
Yeah.
And one time he would just grab me. We worked together for a period of time, and I was such a baby truther, like 9/11's an inside job, and that's what I had. And maybe like a little on aliens. I knew about Sasquatch, such the basic. And he would just grab me. We'd be in the middle of a rush, like, on a wait, just that restaurant vibe of just pumping out on a Friday night. And he'd grab me by the shoulders and just whisper in my ear, just remember, when you're in line for the ovens, everyone will listen to you. So you have to stand up and revolt. It's never too late, even when you're in line for the ovens.
Wow.
And he would always just say this shit in my ear in the middle of a rush all the time. Like, what are you going to do in line for the ovens? You're going to start a revolution.
Wow. So you left your job like because of the mask thing really as well, or that you didn't want to put up with it? Like you're like, I'm not doing this.
That was lifetimes ago. I met him in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
This job, I worked in medical. I was a medical marketer, and like even the whole, it's like I was an attorney for big pharma. Like no, I was a medical marketer, and the service that we provided was pretty great for old people. A lot of them don't know that they have all these options because they've been paying into this huge monster of a system their entire life, that no, you can really just sit at your house and we'll come take care of you. That's the system set up, but they don't know it exists. So really, my conspiracy brain, I believed there was a plague from China. I believed that Donald Trump thwarted said issue from coming to America, but this whole Agenda 21 was still going to play out in front of us. So I didn't ever believe that the Black Plague was here, but I believed everyone that was higher than me at my company did believe it was here. So to watch them send me into old people's things and doctors' offices thinking it was the Black Plague, I just was like, you're so irresponsible. Like, you think it's the Black Plague. You're still worried about the bottom line of your company. I know it's not the Black Plague, and I'm not putting on a mask. So it was like we were at this, and here's the weird thing with the way the universe works. So I was like, I'll just be a asshole. I want a new company car, thinking they'd get rid of me, and they gave me a brand new fucking company car.
Oh my God.
I asked for a raise so big they had to like let me go and rehire me because it was over the percentage of the raise that the company was allowed to give. So I was like, I want this huge unanswerable raise. Okay. I was like, oh, I can't get out of this job to save my life. And it was just the mask that they were like, you have to wear it into the doctor's offices from now on. And I'm like, I don't like anyone telling me what to do. So
yeah, that's still a big fight. This guy's arguing with us on Instagram about the mask. Oh, leave the mask thing. I'm like, oh, it's just
it's freedom of speech for me. It's if you can look at China and their culture for the last 2 decades minimum, they have forced their population to wear a mask and be afraid of the air. They've told them it was pollution. It wasn't viruses. It was the pollution, but it's still this cover of face. If you look into Middle Eastern cultures for women, they want to cover their face because if I even cover my face like this, you can't hear me the same. You can't see my expressions. Us as animals, you can't see me smile or bare my teeth. There's so much that us as humans are relayed without our fucking words that those masks are ritual to me, and I refuse to be part of your eyes wide shut.
It's also a visual reminder of what's happening. And if without that, you wouldn't even know you wouldn't even think anything's happening. I mean, it's the only thing left that they have that's physically reminding everybody of what's happening.
Do you believe we're like such powerful manifestors? We're manifesting this now, but they have to sell us the reality so it keeps up.
Yeah, maybe that's a good one. I don't know. That's why I try to stay positive but it's hard. I don't even want to go out in public. I mean, I'm falling into their trap because I don't even want to be associating with public anymore in a way. Like I just want to stay home and read.
Does it make you cry or get pissed or both?
Both. Sometimes I feel like crying. Like it's just seeing kids masked up and parents that want to get their kids jabbed. I'm just like, oh my God, it's so fucking disheartening.
I've had those, and even season in Florida, off season when it's just Floridians here, it's pretty like 70 maskless, 30 masked. Everywhere, and especially outside, maskless everywhere. But when the New Yorkers and Connecticut and Rhode Islanders and all those people come down during the winter months, they all come down with their bad ideology and their bad politics and their shitty attitudes. So they all have that, yeah, I'm going to say it, New Yorkers, this shitty, arrogant, entitled attitude that we come from the center of the universe. Everyone loves the Big Apple. Take a bite. This like arrogant, like we've had it all figured out because they've all accepted their dystopian future already by living in the rat race and the high rises and I pay $5,000 a month for 200 square feet. My bathroom isn't even on my floor, and I don't even eat meals at my home because I don't have a heating source. And that acceptance is not human. Whatever they exist in isn't the same as I want to exist sitting around a fire pit with you or Darren hunting. They don't live in the reality. And so their human instincts of living where at one building is the population of my town. So they have this one building. Their human instincts know there isn't enough fish to feed them, enough fire to heat them, enough water to feed their thirst. Their human instincts know New York and the whole area, that land can't provide enough for that amount of people. And that will give one human, whether you think you're attached or not, the ether's attached to you, anxiety. And then they all take pills, which makes them less attached to source. And then they're all in this Ouroboros. So I think like these big city people, they all come to our open areas and they really bring their shitty hauntings. They haunt us. So it, like right about now after Easter, they all leave. And Florida feels so fucking good right now. Like, yeah, it's hot, it's sweaty, but it feels like a witch surrounds herself with a salt circle. That's what I feel like, salt all over my skin with the sweat. Like I'm safe from their weird fucking ghosts.
Wow. And I really try and check myself to be like, I hope I'm not upset because I want to be right. And it's like, I look wrong right now. Or like, I'm really hoping that it's not an egoic thing, you know, like it just seems like such a weird spiritual psychological battle. And I feel like sometimes we're really losing when I see people that are like, they listen to me, they listen to us, and they don't care. They've made up the decision that the risk is worth it. The risk of the vaccine is worth this less risk of getting COVID or having that happen. And to see all these people flip from saying months ago that they're not going to get vaccinated or they're going to wait forever, to see them just fall into this, oh, it's about the travel, it's about the trap. They're just falling over like dominoes into this vaccinated thing, even though I'm hearing about people that I know, and people that I know are hearing about people they know that are dropping dead like never before. Like I've never heard multiple stories about friends of family members and stuff just dropping dead out of the blue. This is happening now, and it's just, so I don't know. It's such a weird thing. But I'm trying to be aware that.
Are we allowed to black pill?
Yeah.
For a minute?
Yeah, let's do it.
I have this feeling, and I hate to say it because I really try to be, I'm the oldest black pill. I've been a black pill for so many decades that the red pill just was a new high. Like really, I've only been a red pill person for like 6 months, and it was just really, I like to be so punk rock that it felt like everyone I knew was so black pill that I'm like, I'll go full red pill QAnon. Let's do this. Like, I'll be hopeful. If everybody else thinks the end is nigh, and even the most blue-pilled people are like, let's blow our statues in the street, I'll carry the torch for a little while of having hope. That being said, I think this is a game of free will. And something about you feeling like your attachment to God, your creator, source energy, how divine you are, from the eyeball that blinks in you to the lung that fucking fills up and breathes, to the air that we can't even fucking explain what air is. Like what's happening with this whole thing. For me, my divinity, if I wear a mask, it goes away a little bit because I start to live in fear. And if I inject myself, me, Chaney, if I inject myself, I am detaching from source, and I am accepting that I am no longer attached to source. I'm accepting that I'm part of their simulation. I will start to see and feel life differently because I'm accepting fear, and I can't. And so because I really feel this, there is people that I know that have had the vaccine, and I feel a disconnect from them. And I don't think it's my ego. I feel like there's something about our soul connection that I feel like is leaving them. And I don't think it's my ego. I pray about it. I meditate about it. I buy crystals about it. And I also feel the more people in our lives, like our family and friends that are getting this vaccine, it's like squeezing out the light almost, where it's forcing us to find these relationships online with people so far away, because it's like, I think everyone around me is a zombie. Like I have no source energy being fed. I'm used to being a human that's attaching to all these other magnets being fed, and no one's feeding me anymore. And we're so unaware of it. But I think something about it is soul taking, and it's your free will that you're giving up the second you accept this shot, because all the proof is there for you. All the things have been said. It's like that Christian idea. Everyone will get the idea to learn Jesus Christ. And if you don't, everyone will have the idea once on their planet to get to learn him. And if you decide not to accept him, that's on you. That's how I feel about this shot. It's in the opposite way. Everyone will know. It'll be on you if you want to take it. And so something black pill in me feels like when the people are getting the vaccine, like they're already gone. Like I'm already going through this loss of them. Like it might be physical, it might just be spiritual, but they're not and I don't even want to say it. It's not that I love them any less. It just feels like we're not attached the same. And I don't know how to say it in a way that sounds logical.
Yeah, that makes sense though. That's kind of what I think what I was trying to say, but you said it much better. But that's probably why I'm feeling that way as well. And I mean, I guess there's the fear aspect of the vaccine. Like, are we just in fear of the vaccine? I mean, they're in fear of COVID. Are we just in fear of the vaccine? I mean, I really don't think that's the case. I mean, but I am checking that. I mean, I feel like this whole thing has gone down the wrong way. The whole thing is broken from top to bottom. And that's why I disagree with the jab to begin with. I mean,
I get the losing.
Explain that to people. They just don't.
People say, I get it, where people are like, what are us conspiracy theorists going to be scared of them now, like they were us being maskless? I understand all that, but I have real women in my life that are having stuff happen with their periods and their menstrual cycles, and it's real. Like whatever's going on with ladies that I know, and when they're like, I'm crampy for no reason, but then somebody in their office just had the first shot, like everyone can link it to this. And I'm hearing stories of like ladies that are all the way through menopause bleeding again, which that's your uterus lining just shedding for no reason. It literally has nothing to do with you having an egg in there anymore. You went through menopause already. So there's things, just I can't speak for men. I can't speak for minorities. I can only speak for ladies in my age that I talk to, and it's weird.
Yeah. Do you think it's fresh from a fresh jab? Like, is it okay to be around people that, or, I mean, this is completely speculative, but does it go away? Does it lessen after a week or two from somebody?
I don't know about the whole, and it makes sense that you would shed. Like, the idea, it seems whatever. I don't think we're contagious. I don't think like I give you a cold. I think your body shows symptoms that we assume are a cold because you're overworked, tired, haven't eaten right, don't have the right nutrients. So your eyes water and your throat gets scratchy. I think like even the whole viral argument to me, I don't even know if I agree with what science tells us about that necessarily. So it makes more sense that after a vaccine, you would be spread like they tell us cold spread way more than how natural people get sick. And then I think I caught your cold. Did you, or were we walking into the same, air-conditioned house from hot outside, working around the same dusty environment? Did I catch your cold, or were our bodies worn down the same way? So I don't know. I think you're more likely to catch whatever they're sticking in the needle than anything my body's going to produce to get rid of bacteria.
Yeah. Or it could even be more of a resonance thing. Like they don't even know how, when you yawn, why does it make me yawn? So it could even be something like that.
What's your idea of cryptocurrency in all of this? Attached or not?
Not attached in what way?
Well,
like attached from the powers that be kind of thing, or
you think it's the one world currency? You think it's all the part of, they said they won't ever rip anything from you, give it away willingly. It's named after the dead crypt currency, crypto energy. So it's like dead energy, and the idea of how the crypto works with the energy is the more people with the blockchain have to do it for it to all get it. Us putting a microchip in us, we become part of the blockchain. So then we become part of the dead energy. We're like accepting somewhere that like that get rich quick, that American dream idea. And then
chain to the block. Yeah. I've heard some people. I think it's I don't think so. I think it's kind of more organic, but they're going to try and get a hold of it, and they're going to probably take it over or take it down. They'll take it down and create their own centralized digital currency or whatever that they'll force us through. I don't know. I feel like they don't have. I don't know.
Isn't cryptocurrency only as strong as the technology that holds it? Like the same as a government, isn't a government only as strong as the computing that it's capable of processing?
Yeah.
I
I
don't-
mean, we're all susceptible to a Carrington event, you know. I mean, if any kind of EMP or Carrington event happens, we're toast, including crypto. I mean, all that, right? It's just we're so fragile.
What about the manifestation of crypto? Like it just being energy and it actually being the representation right now of this 4D, 5D quantum we're going in of energy. And so it's like we can see directly that we're more power, because people will be like, oh, look what they did with the GameStop, the ants. Look what the ants did to overcome all this stuff. Some people think they energetically are messing with these
Yeah.
current
I think so with that for sure. I mean, like recently the whole thing's being messed with now, the whole drop in it and all. I mean, now it's starting to be manipulated, but I feel like it started organically, and it's kind of a microcosm of us all being connected. I mean, the chain doesn't necessarily have to bind you; it can just connect you too. I mean, you could look at it, in that way.
Elon Musk, good guy or bad guy?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is there a good guys?
I don't know. I don't know. There is, but are they ever gonna be there for us? Like, I don't think so. Like, we can't rely on anybody. I mean,
just the good guys you can touch, feel, talk to, see, vibe off of.
Yeah.
Not anyone the TV's telling you about.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like I'm at the point now where if it's viral, it's on purpose. They can catch the stuff and shut the virality down, right? They have that program they talked about, Crowd Tangle, I think it might be called. You ever heard of that?
No.
And I think when something comes viral, they can choose to shut it down or not. And that's sort of a deep state Democrat big tech tool. I don't want to label it Democrat because it's pretty much the same at that level. But when something goes viral and they let it, like, if anything stays viral for more than like a half a day, like 12 hours from night to morning, from morning to night, then it's meant to. So I just don't trust anything.
That's exactly what I think. I call it the Tiger King. Anything that is, exactly. I think Chris D'Elia, the comedian, I've said it before, he calls it barracudaing. When anything's a shiny object, all the fish are like, whoop, right toward it. I think it's just a Tiger King. Everybody thinks they're so clever with Bernie Sanders mittens, but no, they wanted you to have that narrative. Anything that's quote unquote viral, they create viruses. We don't create viruses. That is them. It's like they almost tell it to you when they're giving it to you. We're giving you a viral and it's going to spread throughout and then change the way your brain thinks, give you a coronavirus, a mind virus. That's what they're doing to us all the time. And I think they're like breaking. I felt like Larry Gators just
The part that, yeah, exactly. That's awesome. The part that I have a hard time grasping, and this parallels with some of the stuff that you believe on limited hangouts and controlled opposition. And I've heard other people say it. I'm like, that can't be controlled opposition because they bring out so much of the truth on one side. It's like, how can that be controlled opposition? The same way that some of the stuff that goes viral, like let's say with the symbolism, let's say like Tom Hanks, for example, or the red shoes, or when you get into kind of like the stuff that's more about, let's say, satanic symbolism or pedophilia. Like, how can that? There's a conundrum there. Like they're letting that viral on one hand, but then on the other hand, so many people are finding out about it. That's got to be close to backfiring. Like, how can they control that if they let it go viral?
I think some of the stuff, I think it's like us, like their grassroots, their AstroTurf, we're grassroots. I think their viral's fake. Our viral, I think my idea of a digital soldier, and this is the funniest part that has nothing to do with QAnon, but what all truthers have always done is they're all kind of like, I think Sam Tripoli is a good model of a truther because deep down, most truthers are fucking comedians and they're all kind of funny. because they're observers. They've sat back and observed. They've been a black sheep most of their life. So observing and always feeling like egoic in a way that none of these people get me, but also deep in a way that you are looking into the weird shit nobody's looking into. You are still in a pop culture world. So you are watching Tom Hanks movies and reading Manly P. Hall. It's like you're existing in places, but you're this like comedy brain person that I think those memes, this is what I think meme magic is. When you use that creativity where you can actually make somebody laugh while they're learning, that's fucking magic. That's why the witch's hackle has always been demonized throughout history, is because laughter is a fucking key ingredient of alchemy, and Hermes doesn't ever talk about it. And these are the key things that I think women bring to religion, but they refuse to put us in any of their books. And laughter would be one of those key fucking things. I think, like, we're even told, it's been a big brainwashing that women aren't funny. When we are funny, we're just funny when it's so stupid and silly. We're not mocking anything. It's really like we're laughing in church because somebody made a sound and we can't make eye contact with each other at all. Like we're dying, and that's the best emotion. And it's even like a Steel Magnolias thing. They always say laughter through tears is the greatest emotion. It's like a Southern woman thing, is that you have this way of being a steel flower. Like you still have to represent this thing, but you're also this thing behind the scenes that the man gets to go out there and do all this, but you as this woman, you take care of the household, make sure he's fed. You hold him when he cries to make sure he's fucking King Arthur out there for the rest of the world. And it's this part of it that I think is so desperately missing. I got off on a tangent because I was thinking
No, even laughter for stopping evil or demons or shadow men. I mean, people say that's like one of the key things. Like they can't stand being laughed at. I mean, if you treat them with laughter, like mock them and laugh at them, their power dissipates.
And so, the meme magic. So I think like the Epstein didn't kill himself of it all. That I really believe was good guys. I think it's us. It was me and you and Sam and whoever, I hate to say just his name over and over again. I always just think that comedy aspect, we all are. He's just the comedian we know. But that fucking smart ass sense of humor where you take the right picture and you put the right thing of like hanging a Christmas ornament and like this, like Epstein, this ornament didn't hang itself. That shit is how the truth stays in the, what is the Bernie Sanders meme? Even me saying that, half the people listening to this are, I don't know what you're talking about. They know what Tiger King is because somewhere there was some clever memes made. Everyone made funny stuff about the two people on Tiger King. They put their face with a mullet. So there's like this build-in of laughter. So the meme magic of how we win, digital soldiers, is 9/11 still an inside job. Like we've made our taglines better than political parties where they can't get rid of them. That anyone that hears 9/11, even if they disagree with all of it, 9/11's an inside job somewhere in their brain because assholes like you and me were too drunk one night and screamed at a news camera, 9/11's an inside job, fuck her in the pussy.
That's I find that so funny, that one. Fuck her in the pussy. Fuck her right in the pussy. You gotta have right. Fuck her right in the pussy. Like it's just like what?
That's what I'm gonna call this episode. I'm just kidding.
What was I gonna say about that? And that's why, which is so weird that they say the left can't meme. And I'm not making this left or right, but it's built on it. The meme's fuel is hypocrisy and and ridicule and if I think there's something that shows that there's a connection there,
It has to trigger
to the mainstream brainwashing narrative that you can't meme the other way. There's not enough hypocrisy there. We're just open to the truth, however it presents itself. Like,
and we were never left right. The conspiracy just fell in. Like conspiracy theorists, if you
fell
really
anti-mainstream.
Like if you really talk to us, anyone that is old school conspiracy, not anons, no one fucking likes Republicans. We will tell you more shit about Prescott Bush, George W., Dick Cheney, all that shit than you will ever even know about Mitt Romney. Like it's not, and the Clintons, whatever. To me, I'm like, if I looked at the hierarchy of how it went, the Bushes are still higher than the Clintons. The Clintons are like small potatoes, like Obama small potatoes compared to the Bushes. Like, I don't know, like the way people, their Pepsi, Coke, their Burger King, McDonald's, their
Oh yeah, dude! I had it on my Instagram. Somebody's the person bitching about the mask thing is like, oh, you guys are so right wing now. What the fuck are you talking about? It has nothing to do with politics, but they're falling right into that trap. I mean, we're not the ones making that about politics.
No, even I'm like, okay, maybe if Donald Trump is pro-vaccine, they'll be anti-vax. Like, I just thought, what could they?
Maybe.
I'm like, okay, he went to the
that
hospital.
Worked on a small percentage. It might have worked on a small percentage.
He goes to the hospital with COVID. He's an old fucking dude. He eats McDonald's every day. To your narrative, he's out in 3 days. He tells you he took hydroxychloroquine zinc. That's the real life story. No conspiracy. You guys hated the hydroxychloroquine and zinc and begged for the vaccine. Okay. He comes out. He signs all these things. He even fights for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine over Moderna and Pfizer. You guys are pro-vaccines now? Like, and the craziest part of my pro-vaccine friends, of what the brainwashing has done to them, they are all my most liberal, hippie, organic. They have their own chicken farms. They have their own goats. They're doing shit by the right. Like, they're legitimately the people that don't have any poison in their body. They've never had a vaccine, or at least in 20 years. But this one, they're in line for.
Oh, it just shows you, right? It just shows you. That's what's so disappointing. I mean, what does it tell you? How thick and deep the programming is, right? And the brainwashing and the Pfizer marketing. I mean,
do you get down on the NPC of it all? Like, where you think there's what percentage of us do you think are real?
There was a couple percentages talked about from some quotes from, I think, Gandhi or Buddha. 5 maybe, 2%, 5% maybe.
I'm in that realm. When people are like 50-50 or...
Yeah. No, it's no longer 50-50. It was for a while. Now it's like heavily weighted. I mean, Darren will disagree with me on this kind of stuff. He's out there and about during the day, and he sees all these people that are supposedly aware and resisting it all. But when it comes down to it, most of those people will just fall over to one side. They're not going to resist anything serious, I don't think.
In Florida, I tout off how great it is, and it's great. It really is the best country in the world right now. But that being said, so much of why it was great were just because a few little people stuck their heels in the sand and wouldn't move. It really had nothing to do with the whole state as a whole. There was just a couple people that refused to move, and it just kept just enough gasp that other people were like, okay. But overall, the same would have happened here if just enough pushing. Like when the New Yorkers were down all the way January, February, there was a time where I saw people masking up that never did before, where I was like, what are you doing? And they were like, I just don't want to get in an argument at the store. Yeah. And I'm like, that's what the demon wants. You have to argue. I know you hate it. I know you're scared of it, but all the facts are on your side. You have all the documents. Start walking around like Kayleigh McEnany with a binder and just have a little tabs and be like, oh, what's your problem? Scroll to your tab because you have all the facts. Stop being scared. I wear earphones and I'll put music on so loud I don't even hear them chase me around. Ma'am.
Oh my God. It's hard. I don't want to be discussed. I feel like we're done. We're done. That it's over. Waking. I don't even want to use that term, but like changing people's mind or showing them the evidence or whatever. We're done. It's past that.
I'm not, and I honestly, I'm not there to wake people. I'm not.
I've thought about that too. Standing outside the grocery sign with a bunch of flyers or stickers or binders or whatever. If anybody wants to ask questions, like, not that I know anything, but at least I have some information there. Like, it was when I started going through the Pfizer documents themselves and the Moderna stuff and showing people that what they really say, like my my girlfriend's doctor wanting her to take the jab, and I'm like, it says right, and I haven't talked to her doctor about this or anything, but just it says right in the documents, like immunosuppression, people with immunocompromised, it's not going to have the same effect on them, and people with blood disorders shouldn't be taking it. Like, where's that? Nobody's talking about these exceptions that are right in their documents. So you can't even, I mean, people don't even want to see the real writing from the jab makers themselves.
Or even the simple, like, I just am like, can we just talk about Dr. Fauci with AIDS? Can we just simple, like, why are we listening to this dude at all? Like, just
change his mind again today.
I can't.
Now he's saying it's a month. It's about a month. We're about a month or so away from it going back to normal. Forget the percentage on herd immunity and vaccinations. Don't focus on that. Just get as many people jabbed as you can. Like, these guys must realize it's spinning out of control for them.
I think so. And
but then yeah. I'm contradicting what I have just
said.
I
know.
I mean, because like on one hand, it feels like it's spinning out of control because if you really look into it, there's so much disaster from these things, but people are still fucking lining up to get their kids jabbed. But they must see because they know what's happening. So him and Gates must see that this is like, they must have known that it could only go on so long. But so that's why they have to do it so fast. They have to jab so many people so fast because it's going to fall apart eventually. But what do you think about this? My friend and I have a theory. He kind of made it up, but he thinks that about 25-30% is the real jab and the rest is saline.
I kind of think it too.
When they magnetized when Del Bigtree's crew went out and did the actual testing on the magnets, they found 30% or so stick. And that fits with my friend's theory here that that's the only way they can control the adverse, because why is it so, some people have no effect at all and some people they're dying, some people have really bad heart problems, there's all kinds of adverse events, but there's also not for a lot of people. And how do they manage that? How do they manage that so it doesn't go over the tipping point? And then, because I know people that are having adverse events that know people that have died, like it's only 1 degree of separation away from that for me. That's only a matter of time before so many doctors and scientists see what's happening and push back. So how else do you control that?
The doctors and scientists are the regurgitators of they got the straight A's because they regurgitated the information the best. They're no longer the smartest people. Like our idea of what a scientist used to be, that's why I think they sell us like Einstein all the time, because it gives us the idea of that's what all the scientists are now. These guys doing these studies, but really scientists are just the regurgitators and get the straight A's from Harvard and Yale and all these places. And then big pharma comes in and pays all their money for all their studies. So even if you were some good guy scientist that really was trying to like cure cancer, you're so far in the back room that if you're like, oh my God, I got it, they're like, thank you. And they take it and they put it in a diamond mine. So they'll deal with that when something else bigger that they can make more money off of comes up, and then they'll give the cure to that thing because there'll be a new thing called Lancer, and that's scarier than cancer. It's cancer 19, it's like,
yeah, I know, but there's enough, like, even though they think of it in that way, and I agree with you, but there's still going to be a tipping point of enough people that are
I think we're
back.
past their tipping point. I
do
think somewhere their plan, just because of how long I thought, like what I knew of Agenda 21, their plan didn't go, like the race war wasn't big enough. Soleimani, North Korea, so those nuclear events didn't happen. The gas crisis was kind of figured out in 3 days. What are the Black Plague really didn't kill anyone. It just locked us inside our homes for a while. I know everybody that says this is the preemptive. It's the next thing. But I think I'm hoping even like, let's say 30% of the people got the vaccines, Hopefully their bodies can transmute it. There are going to be deaths from it. But if this is World War III, like a freezing war of information and some big spiritual thing that's bigger than guns and ammo, because we're not even seeing any really being thrown except for what the TV's telling us about the invisible screen in Iraq that stops fucking missiles. And we're all like, wow, look at the fireworks hit the invisible screen. That's technology at its best. We must need that. I don't know. There's just something so fanciful about the whole idea that I think somewhere the bad guy's totally lost and we're just watching everything play out on TV.
Oh, I hope you're right. Yeah, I hope you're right. That's kind of what Darren might say too, but I don't know. I feel like they're still going full steam ahead. I mean, and maybe that could be the difference between us being in Canada under a new lockdown, and people are like, they're basing our lockdowns on percentage of jabs now. So they're going to jab 70% of us before we get any kind of freedom back. And then I feel like they're going to, we've sort of said this all along, that the forced vaccinations are coming, but it might not be forced yet. But what they're going to do is blame in the fall. They're going to blame this new lockdowns, new variants, new pandemic on the unvaccinated. Push even harder for their, I don't know if they're going to call it boosters, or I don't know how they're going to do like the people that are already vaccinated, but they're going to come after us, I think, even harder. Because it's just, they're not even, they're not even looking at Florida and saying, hey, look, we actually have Florida and Texas now have been a prime example for the last few months of how this should be handled.
We've never locked down. Some of our counties have, but we never have. Like the idea of, like, I hear my friends sometimes all over and they're fucking breaking. They're mentally breaking. And I have a guilt sometimes of like, sitting at a bar with bikers, all just playing pool and chilling like it's 1999.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, okay, if this is a country, because people have this fantasy idea, let's move to a tropical island like the beach until one of us gets hurt and it becomes anarchy. And that was fun for a few months until we fucked ourselves right out of our paradise. But I think it has to live in a culture. A person once told me when I went to a job is, Chaney, if you don't like the culture of a place, leave that place, because you cannot change the culture of something. And I'm looking at the culture of Florida and I dig it. I need culture like this all the way around me, because even me and 150 good people, 20 bad people can fuck all of us up really quickly. And so you need a lot more than 150 people. You need a country, and you need an ideology, and you need a culture. And that is Florida to me. And if I have to get every fucking person in every way to get every person to come to this country, I don't know what battle we'll have to fight from here, but we have our own resources. We can all feed ourselves. We have all the electricity we need. We have everything you can think of that you would in that dreamy little island. We have all that, and we're attached to mainland, and we have all the guns, and we have, if you want to think of a fucking blood crip gangbanger or the biggest redneck on a tractor, they're all not sitting for shit. They're like anywhere in between. And like Harley Davidson people and fucking Cubans that are like, fuck socialism. Everywhere in between. We have old Polish people here that they're like, no one talks about my ancestors in World War II. And old Jewish people here that they're like, everyone talks about mine and I'm not going to stop screaming about it. And so there's a reason Florida and alchemy and salt and heat and sun and ocean and everything else. I just feel like we're sitting in a spot that everybody should come here. Everybody should plan their fucking pilgrimage. And there's a place out there. All of our ancestors left their homeland for religious freedom. All of them. No matter who your fucking ancestors are, no matter the color of your fucking skin, you pilgrim somewhere, your ancestors, for freedom of some sort. Everybody, we like to be convinced, oh, we were running for food. We wanted resources. Okay. That's called freedom too. Yeah. So I feel like Florida is freedom. It has flow in the name. It's every culture you can think of, every color you can think of. It all is represented here. And I have a pride for here. And I don't think everyone should just cut and run from their places. But I don't know. I don't think this is an art. I think people just need to be free enough, not scared for their lives, regather themselves again. And maybe it's not forever, but come to Florida for a few months, sit in the sun, have your mask off, see your kids play with other kids, meet people and converse, shoot some pool, and be like, holy shit. Why am I letting Joe Biden tell me what to do again? Like, what?
Or just even, I mean, even in Canada, I mean, I don't know how we get down there. I mean, I guess we could find our way down there, but I mean, that's what's so crazy making about this is we see examples all over of how, I mean, at least we see examples who are willing to look and see examples of how, you know, the lockdowns, the masks, all the crazy rules that we have now don't make any sense at all. Like, it's so hard to see our politicians outright just lying to our faces and so many people just watching and just believing. And oh, it's so disappointing.
It's scary because you got the Kindle. Like, your politician is actually what everybody was scared of with Trump. He's the most popular guy in school. Really? Because you guys got the cutest boy in school as he was like just a good looking guy. I'm like, where did this dude come from? And he kind of came out of like, whew, Trudeau.
Yeah.
It's so nuts.
He was involved with Sinclair was involved with his dad. And I mean, he kind of raised him, I think. I mean, he's got influence now that you see, like when you really go back and to see what he's just part of the whole system.
Is he a Castro?
Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
Oh yeah. I mean, crazy.
If anyone hasn't looked into that, you have to pull up pictures of Fidel Castro young with Justin Trudeau. Oh, wait, Justin Trudeau. Yeah, I always get it mixed with the actor. Was it Justin Theroux or something? The one Jennifer Aniston married from Leftovers.
There's a great quote from his mom recently about something about don't eat donuts, just eat kale. Some weird quote from his mom that the No Agenda guys play all the time. It's just hilarious.
It's creepy. No matter what, I don't care if it's like, okay, first we free Florida and everybody figures it out, and then we're gonna save Georgia, and then we're gonna save Jamaica, and then we have to save each other.
But don't you worry about, like, I mean, this is the way, you know, I'm starting to think now too, is in this black pilled way. Don't you worry about them, you know, Florida being the epicenter of some false flag or some kind of like fake fucking war might be a bit harsh, but they're going to have to push back, you know, somehow to Texas and Florida and your free states. Something will happen.
Just sitting inside my house for just an infinity and just doing this for the rest of my life seems like such a fucking nightmare. I'm like, bring on whatever movie fear that you've created in Bluebeam. I'm ready for it. Is it Cloverfield? Let's run. I'm like, I don't know. At least it seems more. I feel like we're waiting for something epic. And like one of the biggest philosophies that I would just fucking hate to be true is like the world didn't end in a bang, but with a whimper. And that's what it feels like. It feels just like we're going out with the shittiest whimper. And I'm just like, bring on the aliens, bring on Jesus, bring on whatever your thing is. Okay, cool. I'll buy your philosophy to bring on your thing. So whatever horrible thing, at least it'll be something.
Yeah.
It'll be a rock bottom for us as a collective. And then we can build from there as like radioactive warlord tribes. I don't know what will be next.
Yeah.
Or someone will find this, and this will be like the one thing that's playing with the weird skips on it, that there'll be like, we have to create society over this. I think they want us to wear masks.
Yeah.
All right. I have totally had you here. And I love that you hung out, and plug everything that you guys do, because you're definitely one of my favorite shows. And if everybody hasn't Grimerica, it's maybe, dare I say, better than America right now. You should Grimerica.
Yeah, thanks, Chaney. No, it's been a fun chat. I really appreciate being on and you having some time with me. And like I said, I just quit my job. Darren's still working full time, but I'm sort of taking a leap of faith that this is going to all work out. I mean, we are doing some audiobooks at adultbrain.ca as well. So we've narrated and published some public domain stuff, like The Secret Doctrine and Secret Societies of All Ages and Countries, volumes 1 and 2. I'm narrating The Secret Doctrine book 2 right now, which is fantastic. I think it's better than the first one. Secret Teachings of All Ages is coming out. I mean, that's just
dope
to be able to narrate that and have Darren already publish it. It's going to be coming out soon. It's fantastic. And also Grimerica is our normal podcast, the Grimerica Show. That's at Grimerica.ca. And our new feed, which is kind of more of a subscriber feed where we get into more controversial stuff. 2-hour shows, the first hour for free and the second hour for subscribers, is GrimericaOutlawed.ca. And that's how, you can support us and support the shows and the independent content and everything.
Oh, perfect. Well, you're so awesome, and thanks for being here, and I will talk to all of you guys soon. Bye.
So she has been Chaney, and now she's off to smoke a blunt. See you next Tuesday, you fucking cunts.
Okay, I'm such the worst. My dog will continue to scratch at the door, and I'm like, this is not happening.
My cat's just scratching at my door too.
I saw you having to go in and out, and that's usually where I'll be to my wife, like, please get them out of here.